Hi there, my name is Nigel Gilmore Cook and I am the Education Officer for Natural Sciences here at National Museums Northern Ireland. In this presentation, Explore Urban Nature Learning Together, I will be speaking to you about a project we've been working on over the past 3 years and the impact it has had both for our organisation and the people involved. When I first started my role at National Museums NI, the organisation was already a member of the Real World Science Group. This group involves member organisations from the culture and heritage sector across the UK, collaborating on science initiatives, projects and training. It was through this network that we were made aware of the Explore Urban Nature project headed by the Natural History Museum. The aim of the project was to get young people, particularly of high school age, involved in the investigation of nature in the urban areas around them, and to also provide a package of learning resources and continued professional development for teachers. As well as my core role of developing and delivering a new natural sciences learning programme, I was to be responsible for our Explore Urban Nature project activity. At that point, it had already been decided that National Museums NI would approach the project from a slightly different angle. Rather than holding one-off workshops with a large number of school groups, our plan was to work with a small number of local schools for children with special educational needs and disabilities, or SEND, each year, with the same classes taking part in multiple workshops across the school year. Our hope was that by approaching the project in this way, we would provide not only a deeper level of engagement for the children, but also a stronger working relationship with local SEND schools going forward. Initially, it was proposed that we would work with a class from each of 4 schools every year of the project, 12 classes in total, and that each class would receive 4 outreach visits and 4 visits to the Ulster Folk Museum itself. Although not as urban a site as Ulster Museum, the Folk Museum was selected because there was space and opportunity to create something more lasting with the classes, namely developing an unused patch of grass on the museum site into a series of nature plots. Over the course of the project, each class would develop their own plot into a biodiversity hotspot. We wanted the project to be visible to general visitors and to make a noticeable difference to the site, so an area just behind the ticket office was selected. This area was also close to the education courtyard for ease of access between it and the indoor facilities. To help us dedicate a greater amount of time to explore urban nature activity, a project assistant role was created, and for the first year this role was filled by Maureen Carville. Maureen had a wealth of experience in community engagement, education and natural sciences, as well as having previously worked within National Museums NI. Between the two of us, the first year's activity was developed and delivered, alternating between outreach and on-site visits. We wanted to ensure that throughout the project, the activities were kept flexible and relaxed to ensure that they suited the varied needs of the students taking part. Outreach sessions consisted of craft activities, some of which involved creating physical decorations for the nature plots, for example stones painted as bees or ladybirds, and plant pot markers decorated with native plant species. On-site activity, however, was dedicated to work on the plots themselves, from digging to weeding, planting and watering. One of the schools we worked with in Year 1 was Mitchell House, and the class who came to us had several students who used wheelchairs. As a result, we adapted one of the nature plots to have a raised bed at the end closest to the pavement with the help of the conservation volunteers, and some reclaimed railway sleepers from the Transport Museum. This raised bed was not only more accessible, but also created a much better environment for digging, planting and growing. We very quickly realised that the rest of the plots were hard work, with a thin layer of soil disguising a layer of large rocky debris just under the surface. However, we persevered, and here you can see some images of the plots from Year 1 of the project activity. On their final on-site visits, the students looked to see what biodiversity they could find within their plots and enjoyed small celebrations with packed lunches and explorer bags provided as a thank you for taking part in the project. Upon completing Year 1 activity, we asked the teachers who took part for some feedback. This took the form of telephone interviews, and the teachers who agreed to participate were full of praise for the project, and several commented how much specific students engaged in ways that surprised them. We also hosted our first Teacher Continued Professional Development, or CPD, session, with multiple teachers from one of the participating schools attending the Ulster Folk Museum for a discussion around considerations for taking learning outside the classroom, followed by practical demonstrations of mini-beasting and survival skills. We learned a lot during that first year of project activity. However, our main takeaway was that in its initial format, project activity felt diluted. We felt that a reduction in the number of sessions would not only make the project more manageable, but also would improve the depth and quality of engagement for the students taking part. As a result, it was agreed that years 2 and 3 of the project would involve 3 local schools per year, with 3 outreach and 3 on-site workshops for each school. Going into year 2 of Explore Urban Nature, Maureen left as project assistant and Linda Logan stepped into the role. Linda also had a wealth of public engagement experience, as well as being a qualified project evaluator and with long-term experience of working with National Museums NI. Further to streamlining the programme, we rearranged the workshops so that all of the outreach visits happened first, followed by the on-site visits. This made much more sense in terms of building the students' knowledge and skills ahead of the practical work on the nature plots. Also, going into year 2, a greater focus on the science behind the project activity was required. We wanted the students to feel like they were being scientists by taking part in Explore Urban Nature. A key change to facilitate this was engagement with our teaching collection. The first outreach session now involved examining invertebrate specimens like these. Students were given magnifying glasses and encouraged to ask questions about the invertebrates before choosing one that they would like to use to create an observational drawing. The range of art produced was wonderful, and students were praised for paying particular attention to certain features of their chosen specimen, with legs and antennae often taking the spotlight. In the second outreach session, students then used their artwork and the specimens from session 1 to inspire paint pen art on pebbles. These pebbles would become a physical design feature of their nature plots, so bright colours were encouraged, and we discussed the types of mini-beasts that we hoped to attract to the plot. Often, classes experienced a lots of spiders versus no spiders please divide, so we did our best to explain the ways in which spiders are important to our natural landscape, and how they make life more enjoyable for humans too by controlling numbers of flying insects. Outreach culminated in the third session, which involved learning more about some native plant species and why we might want to plant these in our plots. Students then chose their favourite of the plants to add to small plant pots using the paint pens from the Pebble activity. The idea was that these would not only form a decorative element for the plots, but would also act as markers identifying some of the plants on display. And thus began the on-site visits, each of which involved a small refreshment break to get the students settled in, with the first visit being focused around weeding the plot to prepare for planting. After seeing how well the raised portion of Mitchell House's Year 1 plot grew compared to the rest of the plots, we decided to raise all of the beds for the remaining 2 years. Thankfully, the conservation volunteers lent their expertise once again to create these fantastic beds for us. It's currently winter, so the beds aren't quite at their full glory. But in this picture, you can see how after their second outreach visit to plant, the Year 2 schools created some truly beautiful nature plots. Some of the native species planted here include teasel, which attracts small birds such as goldfinches with its seeds, geraniums, which add lovely bursts of colour and attract pollinators, and sedum, which provides some colour even in the winter. Naturalised species such as verbena are also planted here to add more variety throughout the year. As in the first year, each school's final visit involved investigating their plots, a small celebration lunch, and a gift of an explorer kit, which they then used to explore the rest of the Ulster Folk Museum. This time, we gathered feedback on project activity using forms for both teachers and students, and gained a much greater insight into what had worked well and what we could improve. Feedback was overwhelmingly positive, as Linda will now explain.
When we were looking at evaluation, we thought about the outcomes of the project and how we could explore those. So we wanted to look at the enjoyment levels in the project, but also the learning that would come out of the project, and to explore a wee bit about whether participating in urban nature made the students feel more protective towards the natural environment and have a greater understanding of biodiversity and the impact of their actions on the environment and its sustainability. It showed that the overwhelming majority of the pupils enjoyed participating in all the creative activities that we do on the project and enjoyed the physical being in the outdoors and working with the soil and doing the planting, as well as learning a lot from the project, and that they took away a greater sense of wanting to protect the environment, and they were more observant of nature around them. And I know that a lot of schools tie in improvements in mental health with 5 ways to wellbeing and outdoor learning. So it was very important for us to capture the positive feedback in respect to that. Staff feedback was overwhelmingly positive. There were a few minor tweaks suggested, mostly where students are non-verbal, sort of using picture options for them to respond to any questions that we asked, and also when we were asking questions to maybe offer a range of options for answers so that pupils would be able to pick from a range of answers rather than having to think up answers by themselves, which we've now implemented into this year's activities, so it's worked very well. We're planning on using the same process again, the evaluation forms at the end of the project, and then at the end of every session asking pupils what they've enjoyed about the session and gathering the feedback that way, because it worked very well last year and provided strong evidence of both quantitative and qualitative feedback for us. So no, we're very happy with that.
Teachers stated that they felt the project had provided an engaging learning opportunity for both the students and themselves. Michael is a teacher at Longstone School who took part in Year 2 of Explore Urban Nature with us, and here in his own words, he explains what the experience was like.
Our pupils thoroughly enjoyed every aspect of the Urban Nature project, especially with Linda and Nigel. First of all, Linda and Nigel were very easy to work with. Everything was planned. Everything was coordinated. Linda and Nigel were able to come into the school with examples of the mini beast. They explained everything from week 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6, what was going to happen. The buses were set up. Especially coming from a special school, we have to make sure that our children know everything that is happening in advance, and also their parents. When we took our 24 pupils, this was a mixture of boys and girls, to the Ulster Folk Museum, working with Linda and Nigel was fantastic. The Urban Nature project, from start to finish, was absolutely great to be involved with. And as a teacher, I was able to see then the different aspects that we also can develop our side. We took so much away, it was fantastic. We took away fun, we took away enthusiasm, we took away drive. We looked at our pupils and say, they can do this. We did not expect some of our pupils to get down and dirty, into the soil, getting mucked in, weeding the garden, taking the stones out, painting. A lot of stuff we wouldn't see how well they interact at home from outside. It was inspiring for them. It was a challenge for them. We were motivating them. Bringing that back then to school as a technology teacher, we were able to link in with Nigel and Linda again, making planters. We brought back planters. They made them. They put different of herbs in, like thyme, rosemary. They were able to use that, bring that back to their own home at the end of May, June. Bringing this forward, there's more links that we will do with Linda and Nigel for our pupils, and it's very important for our pupils, but also staff to learn as well. As a teaching community, it's lovely to involve the education team here at Ulster Folk Museum because they bring a different area towards teachers. Teachers can become very static and stale within their own environment. Step on outside that comfort zone and listen to educators like Linda and Nigel is very important because it gives you that additional string to say, there's another way of doing something.
Activity in Year 2 felt like an evolution of the project. The students engaged in more scientific skills and knowledge building, and the plots were much more successful. So successful, in fact, that the unplanted Year 3 plots seeded themselves over summer, with wild plants including field mustard and black nightshade. The area was bustling with life all summer, contributing not only toward our project goals, but wider organisational goals, including our involvement in the All-Ireland Pollinator Plan. Our Year 2 CPD was also an expansion on Year 1, with a total of 12 teachers attending across 2 sessions representing 4 different schools, including some who had not been involved in the project so far. We are now at the beginning of the 3rd and final year of Explore Urban Nature and are applying everything we've learned so far, along with some new adjustments to improve accessibility, including picture response cards and puzzles to solve for students who would prefer not to draw. Year 3 project activity will culminate in a BioBlitz event for all visitors to the Ulster Folk Museum, bringing together our natural sciences curators, research partners, craft and entertainment providers to investigate the plots, learn more about the biodiversity on the Folk Museum site, and encourage people to get more involved in nature in their local area. Okay, so here we have some of the crafts produced by students as part of the Explore Urban Nature project, and these are craft objects that are created during the outreach sessions out to the school, and they then go into the nature plots as decorations. So as one of the outreach visits, they use our teaching collection to inspire them to decorate pebbles using paint pens. Here we've got a lovely dragonfly and a beetle here, and one student who couldn't choose and did all different types of invertebrates, and these pebbles are looking a little bit weathered. They've actually been in the nature plots for about a year now, so they've held up pretty well to the outdoor conditions. We also have here some plant pots that are then decorated in a further outreach visit, and these are the plant pots that act as markers for the plants that are planted, but also have a variety of native species on. So for example, here we've got lovely sea holly. So these are examples of some of the teaching collection specimens that we brought in the second year in order to make the students' engagement feel a little bit more connected to the collections at the museum, and also to give them that feeling of being scientists. So we've got some taxidermy. We've got this lovely blackbird here, which proved very popular. It was named Josh by one of the students, and that's kind of stuck ever since. And then we've got some invertebrates in resin, and also some framed butterflies as well, which again proved really popular, and that's what led to some of the beautiful and colourful designs that you'll see on the pebbles and the plant pots. This project has truly been transformative for us, not only in terms of how we view science at Ulster Folk Museum, but also in terms of how we approach SEND education and building relationships with local SEND schools. Learnings from project activity have already been applied to a new natural sciences programme developed specifically with SEND students in mind, and will be used as a benchmark for future natural sciences engagement work on the site. This model is something that could be adapted and applied to our other sites, at other organisations, or in school grounds themselves. It could be used to combat the growing disconnection between young people and nature, to demonstrate the importance of biodiversity and how small changes in human activity can encourage life to flourish.